Yo, it's the Buff Missionary. We out here trying to get 3 degrees buffer. Like, subscribe. Join me on this adventure to get 3 degrees buffer. We out here in these streets. Let's go. Quick update. In a couple videos, I've been talking about Mission Spotlight and how I remember it was a part of my youth experience growing up. And I talked about even how my dad used to be the one responsible for playing those videos. I still remember these, I don't even know what they were called, but these little round things, and they would stick the slides in and we would see pictures and stuff. It's mad old school, kind of dated myself there, but it's all good, man. It is what it is. Anyways, Mission Spotlight was something that I was very curious about because it used to be prominent in church. I remember seeing this all the time growing up, but there was a time later on, I would say middle school, high school age, I don't remember seeing it anymore. And then especially on the college level and beyond, it's like it's almost like a distant memory. To me, it seemed like it didn't even exist anymore. But I was talking with one of my buddies, a guy who I served in Palau with in 2010, my guy Brian. Thank you. Got to give you a shout out for filling me in on this because he knew a little bit more about it than I did. It turns out that Mission Spotlight actually does still exist, but it's had a name change and kind of a revamp. So now it's called Mission Sunlight, which is cool. You get the illustration there, Jesus being the light of the world, sunlight, Sonlight. So we get that. And that it's usually in, I guess, most traditional churches played either as a part of Sabbath school or in the transition moment between church and Sabbath school. I am glad to hear that it still exists. But there's a couple issues that I do have and maybe questions I want to bring up with this now. If you think about it, and I'll throw this out here too. If you've seen Mission Spotlight or Mission Sunlight recently, let me know. If you haven't seen it for a long time in your churches, let me know. I'm really curious what the information on this is. You out here doing research. This is crazy, but we out here. So the thing that I think is interesting about it is I've been involved at Southern Adventist University. I've been to church services at other universities, and I'm here now at Andrews University. And regardless of the different church service that I've been to, I cannot honestly say that I've seen a Mission Spotlight or a Mission Sunlight in years. I haven't seen one. I have not seen one since, it's been years. Definitely high school, middle school is the last time that I've seen one, all right? That was a while ago. My issue with that is, if you look at the big picture when it comes to youth leaving the church, we know that youth are not in traditional churches anymore. The average age of Adventists is increasing. There's no young people to take their place because they're leaving at a younger age, high school age, they're dipping out in deuces. Even if there are churches that are traditional showing Mission Spotlight during Sabbath school, there's nobody there to see it. Or it's the older generation that's there to see it, and those are not necessarily the first ones who are going to say, all right, cool, let's go out and be a missionary. If you're showing it in a transition between Sabbath school and church, that's almost worse, because the transition, if you're familiar with maybe traditional church and how that transition goes, this is when all the noise is happening. This is when everyone is moving between the different Sabbath school classes and coming back into the church. It's when there's a lot of extra conversation going on. So anything that's going on in the background, even if it's on a screen, is just kind of a filler for what else is going on. Now, I admit, that's an assumption based on my experience with transition between Sabbath school and church. I have never been in a church that have seen a transition where there's been Mission Spotlight playing in the background. So I don't know what the reception is for that. And I don't know if they wait until after the transition is done to play it. I'm not sure. Okay? But like I said, I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't know. If you have, let me know so I can get some correct info on this. But again, if we're talking about a traditional church that this is coming from, that this model is being used in, very few young people are going to be able to see this or be in a position to pay attention to it in a sense where they want to act on it. And then again, because it's something in the middle, how is the Sabbath school lesson connecting to it? Is this just some extra thing that we're not connecting to real life? Talked about it before, how religion, if it's not connected to real life, cannot have real value. It's not going to exist for young people. So if it's just kind of thrown in there just for the sake of doing it, Well, we're not trying to live a life where we're doing things just for the sake of doing it. That's what too many people already assume about Christianity. That's already been too many people's experience with Christianity, and no one is trying to live a life like that. I'm not. So I keep going back to this because if it's in the traditional churches like that, and I've been in the more contemporary churches over the last several years, and I haven't seen it, well, this is where all the young people are. And on top of that, most college or university churches, and even high school churches, are not traditional churches. So I'll take the university level for one. Here at our main church, Pioneer Memorial, there are multiple services that happen every day. So which transition are you backdropping Mission Spotlight for? Which Sabbath school? There's a ton of Sabbath schools. Which Sabbath schools are getting to see this Mission Spotlight video? And then how many of them are being able to connect it to real life and an inspiration of this is something that I should look into? I don't see that. I don't see it. So the format of the college and university churches where all the young people are is not even geared in a way to put that information in front of them. I've had a lot of interesting experiences with the spiritual component at some of our universities here, namely Southern and here at Andrews. And I'm curious if you're involved with another university, if you've experienced anything like this. But there seems to be this ongoing puzzle of trying to figure out, how do we engage the young people? How do we get them locked into spiritual things? How do we create interest in all this stuff? Where's the missions? Where is the freaking, this could be the adventure of your life. Do it now. Where is that? Because that's what missions is. It's an opportunity to travel the world, experience something new before you get into the rest of the real world. And it gives you a preview of the real world. I always stumble on that. Try to say that a few times fast. But it gives you a preview of the real world. That way you know how to engage with people better when you actually do go into it later, once you've graduated. So it's a huge opportunity that's being missed, in my estimation. Where's the disconnect? Where has the emphasis changed? I guess that's the question I'm left with. Why don't we see that as a big opportunity and we're trying to use it as a filler or something that's tagged onto the end of something else when it should be at the forefront? The point of being a follower of Christ is service. I think it's, Matthew 28:20, one of those verses. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. That's one of the big reasons why he came. So if I'm claiming to follow Christ, regardless of being Adventist or whatever other religion there is out there that follows Christ, if I claim to follow Christ, my prime objective should be to serve as a businessman, as an architect, as a scientist, as a computer scientist, as a pastor, as a nurse, in all these different areas. That should be the focus, but it's not. They're separate. And now the mission mentality is something that we don't have time for in a lot of contexts, but I got time to try and be the best businessman and all this that I can. I have time for all of that education, but I don't have time for the education that shows me what's this for, or what's the reason that I should do this. It's another thing. There becomes this issue where people who feel like they have a spiritual calling are being geared towards being a pastor because we've marketed it as if it's the only place where you can have a spiritual impact. So we're putting that spiritual responsibility on this singular position instead of realizing that at a school once called Emmanuel Missionary College, all of us have that responsibility in whatever fields we do. And it's not something that's specialized into just this one area. It was never supposed to be that way. Look at people in the Bible who had different professions. Paul, greatest missionary ever, right? We also look at him as the greatest theologian for those people in seminary circles. But what did he do? He wasn't a pastor. He was a tent maker. And he used that to support himself and to give himself opportunities to meet with all kinds of different people. A lot of what's recorded are his interactions with people in places that he specifically went on these missionary trips. We have no idea how many people he sold tents to that he was able to witness to and share Jesus with. We have no idea. But he had that mission mentality for sure, and that's something that we're missing now because we've separated the two. You want to do something spiritual, you got to be a pastor. You can't do that as a nurse. You can't do that as a doctor. That field is for that. No, it's one and the same. The mission mentality should be something that permeates every profession if I am a Christian and if I'm choosing to follow Christ. So with that understanding, how do we make the change? How do we adjust the culture to reflect that, to get back to that thing that we've lost? That's the question. I'll be thinking about that over the next few years. There's not an answer for it today. I'm sorry. But until then, it's the Buff Missionary. Like, subscribe, 3 Degrees Buffer. We out here. Let's get it. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.